Welcome to the channel The Winning Tales. Here we share inspiring stories of triumph, perseverance, and success to motivate and uplift you on your journey to greatness. So without wasting any time, let's start the video. John was a man who was obsessed with money and success. He had been raised in a family that valued wealth and status above all else, and he had been taught from a young age that poor people were inferior and unworthy of his attention. This mindset had carried over into his adult life, and he had become a ruthless businessman who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. One day, John was on his way to a business meeting in a chartered plane. He had been looking forward to this meeting for weeks, as it was an opportunity to secure a deal that would bring him one step closer to his dream of becoming the world's richest man. As he sat in his seat, he looked down at the landscape below and saw nothing but poverty and despair. In his mind, the people who lived in those areas were insignificant and unworthy of his attention, but his thoughts were interrupted when the plane suddenly lost control and began to plummet towards the ground. John was thrown around in his seat as the plane tumbled through the sky, and he could feel his heart pounding in his chest. For a moment, he thought that this was the end. But then, the plane crashed into the ground with a deafening thud. John was thrown from his seat and hit his head on the metal frame of the plane. Everything went black. When he woke up, he was lying on the ground surrounded by a group of poor villagers. He had been unconscious for 3 days, and during that time the villagers had taken care of him, giving him food and water and tending to his injuries. John was surprised by their kindness, but he still felt a sense of superiority over them. He was, after all, a wealthy and powerful man, while they were nothing more than poor peasants. But as the days passed, John began to see the villagers in a different light. He watched as they worked together to build a shelter for him out of clay and wood, and he marveled at their ingenuity and resourcefulness. He saw the way they cared for one another, sharing what little they had and supporting each other through difficult times. And he realized that they were not inferior at all. In fact, they were some of the kindest and most compassionate people he had ever met. As he recovered from his injuries, John spent time talking to the villagers and learning about their lives. He listened as they told him about the struggles they faced every day, the lack of food and clean water, the disease and poverty that plagued their community. And he began to understand that the world was not as simple as he had once thought. There were many people out there who were struggling to survive, and they deserved just as much respect and compassion as anyone else. When John was finally well enough to leave, he thanked the villagers for their kindness and promised to do what he could to help them. As he boarded the plane that would take him back to New York, he felt a sense of purpose that he had never felt before. He knew that he had been given a second chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. John's heart was now filled with immense gratitude towards the poor people who had taken care of him when he was at his weakest. He knew he had to do something to repay them for their kindness. He started by setting up a foundation that would provide free education to children from poor families. He also opened up a hospital that would provide medical care to those who could not afford it. John donated a significant portion of his wealth to these causes and promised to continue doing so every year. As word spread of John's philanthropic activities, more and more people started looking up to him as a role model. His story was covered by various media outlets, and he was invited to speak at conferences and events around the world. He shared his story of transformation, urging others to open their hearts and minds to those less fortunate. John had now become a different person altogether. He no longer saw the poor as insects, but as human beings, just like him. He made it a point to visit the village where he had stayed every year and spend time with the people there. He realized that money and success were not everything. True happiness came from giving back and making a positive impact in the lives of others. Years went by, and John continued his philanthropic activities, helping thousands of people in need. His actions had inspired others to follow in his footsteps, and a wave of generosity and kindness had spread across the world. John had become the richest man in the world, not in terms of money, but in terms of the love and respect he had earned from people everywhere. In the end, John realized that the crash of his chartered plane had been a blessing in disguise. It had opened his eyes to the true meaning of life and had given him the chance to make a positive impact in the world. He looked back on his life with no regrets, knowing that he had done everything in his power to make a difference in the world. The motto of this story is that kindness and compassion towards others, regardless of their social status, can bring about a transformation in one's life. It shows that even someone who was once egotistic and saw the poor as insects can have a change of heart and become a force for good in the world. The story highlights the importance of giving back and making a positive impact in the lives of others, and how this can ultimately lead to true happiness and fulfillment. And that's all for today's video. I hope you found it informative and enjoyable. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support means a lot to us and helps us create more content like this. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.